Today's topic is a little different. It's a first in a two-part series with the Swamis in America at Shanti Ashrama. Shanti Ashrama was a great experiment started by one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Turiyananda. He was told by Vivekananda to go and build an ashrama there, what is today Shanti Ashrama. It's also the story about the first Western saint in the Ramakrishna order, Swami Atulananda, who was Dutch. He had met Vivekananda, and he was one of Turiyananda's foremost followers. The story takes place in this book with the Swamis in America and in India. It was first published Guru Das Maharaj's accounts of With the Swamis in America. And then later, when I was in the Santa Barbara convent, I was working with the Hollywood archives, and we ran across a correspondence between Guru Das Maharaj, Swami Atulananda, the first Western saint in the order, and Ujjwala, Ida Ansel, who also met Vivekananda Turiyananda. And she passed away in our Hollywood Center. And it was a correspondence between these two when they were together, when they first were together at Shanti Ashrama and the years afterwards. And I took this correspondence, it was quite a bulky correspondence, to Swami Swahananda, and I said, I think this has promise. And he said, okay, see what you can do with it. So I started reading through it, and then I took out a pair of scissors and I began to cut up the correspondence and then began to put it in chapter heads. And then I brought it to Swami Swahananda and I said, this is what I've done. And he said, you've destroyed the beauty of the book. And then I handed him the table of contents and he began to read. And this is Swami Swahananda's, his great liberality. He thought, oh, he said, this has promise. He said, let me write to Advaita Ashrama and let us see if we can not have this book published. And so it was published. And out of that came years of putting it together in the first computer edition in the Vedanta Society of Southern California. They gave me a little study, and I don't know if any of you have ever been to Santa Barbara, but it's on 50 acres, 12 acres are cultivated. And they put me on the lower end, near the chicken coop in the land of the coyotes. And there I was right next to the library, complete quiet. And I would go down there in the early morning, do my job in the convent in the later morning, and go down again in the afternoon and the evening, and with a thermos of coffee and tea. And it took me a number of years to put it together. And out of that came With the Swamis in America and India. And I'd like to share with you a little bit about what came out of that book. Let's begin by asking ourselves, what is the ashrama ideal? Sri Ramakrishna said, if you ask me how long you should live in solitude away from your family, I should say it would be good for you if you could spend even one day in such a manner. 3 days at a time are still better. One may live in solitude for 12 days, a month, 3 months, or a year, according to one's convenience and ability. Through spiritual discipline practiced in solitude, churn the butter of knowledge and devotion from the milk of the mind. Then that butter can easily be kept in the water of the world. So Ramakrishna set the bar. During Vivekananda's first visit to the West, he spoke of America's need for a Vedanta retreat. He called it a center for quiet and rest and meditation. And as the divine will would have it, on June 25th, 1900, Miss Minnie Book, a New York devotee, deeded a homestead to Swami Vivekananda, which became the Shanti Ashrama, 300 acres in the remote San Antonio Valley in Northern California, which is now owned by the Vedanta Society of Northern California. Swami Vivekananda assigned Swami Turiyananda to the California work. He was in the US at that time. And he was promised a small group of San Francisco students. He promised them, I will send you a real Hindu monk who lives what I talk. And as you know, Vivekananda came to the West in 1893, and he established the New York Center and also the Vedanta Center in San Francisco, which is now the Vedanta Society of Northern California. So he told those San Francisco students just that. And then to his reclusive brother monk, Turiyananda, he said, it is the will of the Divine Mother that you should take charge of the work there. Swami Turiyananda smiled. Mother's will? Rather say it is your will. Certainly you have not heard the mother communicate her will to you in this matter. Vivekananda replied, yes, brother. If your nerves become very fine, then you will be able to hear mother's words directly. Swami Vivekananda told him, forget India, go to the land, establish the center. Mother will do the rest. So what is an ashrama? Marie Louise Burke, a Vivekananda scholar who wrote the beautiful 5-volume set on Vivekananda in the West, commented on Swami Vivekananda's ashrama ideal. In her words, she wrote, if a sojourner is to benefit from a stay at a retreat, the place itself must be steeped in holiness, its very air touching and quieting the mind like a blessing. It must be a place where a special manifestation of divinity has been evoked, where monastics have practiced austerity and contemplation for long periods of time, a place where some exceeding subtle force has been set in vibration, and where, when one steps into its boundaries, something deep within oneself vibrates in response. The residence of a great soul can create a great retreat. And that is what happened at Shanti Ashrama. If you go today, you will feel that vibration. Swami Vivekananda's dream in the West was to train up dedicated students to practice and realize the Vedanta ideals. And so we have the Shanti Ashrama, that experiment. In July 26, 1900, Turiyananda arrived in San Francisco. His work, he said, was with the few and with the many. But there were many in the city who objected him to devoting so much of his time and energy to the few whom he would take to Shanti Ashrama. Nevertheless, this was an ongoing battle between Swami Turiyananda and the trustees of the San Francisco Center. Nevertheless, he decided to first go to the mountains and start the ashrama, then return and teach in San Francisco and also in Los Angeles. The San Antonio Valley is 10 miles long and 1 mile wide, surrounded by a mountain range, 1,000 feet above the valley floor. It's deer and rattlesnake country. What was the trip like for Turiyananda and those band of few? He was with a party of 8 Western students. And you can read about them in Marie Louise Burke's books and also in this book. Emily Aspinall, Ida Ansel, who passed away in our center, Dr. Milburn Logan, who became the 2nd president of the Vedanta Society of San Francisco, George Roebuck, all who had been students of Vivekananda, Mrs. Agnes Stanley, Mrs. Bertha Peterson, whom I will talk about later next week, the next time we meet. She really became a living saint. And Dr. Chandler, who were members of the San Francisco Vedanta Society, and Mrs. Jackson, a friend of Dr. Chandler. 4 days earlier, Lydia Bell, a home of truth teacher and a disciple of Vivekananda, and Miss Minnie Book, who had deeded the Shanti Ashrama to Swami Vivekananda, had gone on ahead to the ashrama to clean up the one deserted cabin and shed there, and to pack up Miss Book's furniture and camp equipment. So what was the Swamis' party like as they began their journey? It first began with a train ride from San Francisco to San Jose. Then a horse-drawn stagecoach, 20 miles southeast to Mount Hamilton and Lick Observatory, where one could see 100 miles in all directions. When they got there, Swami Turiyananda said, "Mother, where have you brought us? What have you done?" It was deserted, it was desolate country. But Mrs. Agnes Stanley protested, "Swami, why are you dejected? Have you lost faith in Mother? You have less faith than even baby, Ida Ensel." With these words, she emptied her purse into his lap as a gesture of faith. And Swami Turiyananda so appreciated her pioneer spirit, he immediately gave her the name Shraddha, which means faith. And you can read about her. You can read about all of these students as they developed in this great experiment, which was Shanti Ashrama. But this faith was sorely tested over the next 15 miles of almost impassable road, twisting down the mountains to the valley floor, where there was nothing more than a long, dry, gravelly creek bed for a road. From Mount Hamilton, the party had only a spring wagon drawn by 4 mules. So baggage and camp provisions had to be temporarily left behind. The riding conditions were cramped as the oppressive sun bore down on the travelers. And all this account we get through Ida Ensel, baby as she was called by Vivekananda and Turiyananda. Swami Mr. Gerber, a landowner who had lent the party his spring wagon, and 2 elderly ladies occupied the seats, while 3 others were seated on the wagon floor with their feet dangling over the edge. Ida Ensel was in the middle, as she described. "I held on to the others, who in turn held on to the sides of the wagon. When we went down grades, I relaxed serenely, but clutched my companions tightly when the hill was uphill." Swami was grave and silent. There was little conversation. Mr. Rohrbach was forced to ride his bicycle rather than leave it with the rest of the party's baggage. Dr. Logan and Mrs. Stanley rode horseback till the latter fainted and fell. After Shraddha regained consciousness, Swami ordered her to take his seat in the wagon, and he, clad in a Panji silk suit, led the exhausted party the rest of the way into the ashrama. At last, the pilgrims arrived to a supper of boiled rice and brown sugar. They had successfully passed their first test. That night, when the air had cooled down, the party sat around a campfire while Swami Turiyananda chanted softly in Sanskrit. Ida Ansel later recalled in her memoirs, "We felt only sublime tranquility. The air was so soft and it was so still, the night so black and the stars so near and bright. It seemed as though the past, with all its hours of tragedy and moments of foolish joy, had been blotted out. A sort of vague dream, and real life began at this moment." What were the ashramites' reasons for coming? Ida Ansel, or Baby, nicknamed by Swami Vivekananda, said, "I was lame, frail, 23 years of age, much younger in experience, deprived by various infirmities of the usual activities of youth." When she asked Swami Turiyananda for permission to go to the ashrama, he looked at her chanting. Finally, he said, "Why do you want to go?" Ida Ansel replied, "I want to become butter." Uji had remembered that Turiyananda had explained in one of his lectures that there is butter in milk, but it must be separated by churning before it is usable. So there is the Atman in man, but meditation is necessary to awaken him to that consciousness. And for the purpose of meditation, retirement from the distractions of the world is essential. Swami then said, "Butter you will become if you try hard." Swami then explained, as Sri Ramakrishna had explained to him, butter must be separated from milk before it is usable. Even though the Atman lies within, meditation is necessary to awaken us. And for the purpose of meditation, a period of retirement from worldly distractions is essential. So what were the first days like? They were severe living conditions. And Turiyananda became a bit dejected. But at night, he had the vision of a mother bird feeding her young. He then realized, I was given to understand that the mother, the divine mother, had prearranged everything. The next day, a water diviner came and discovered 3 sources of water, the nearest being a plentiful spring of water. Soon things began to get regulated by the unseen hand of the Swami. Each of the ashramites took up some necessary duty. Some gathered the wood required for cooking and the campfire. Some prepared the meals. Some washed the dishes. Some cleared up or improved the premises. All were happily busy. Swami also helped with all the work. He cut wood, he carried water, and he helped to build the cabins. And some of those cabins are still standing. During the first 3 months, the dining room was built, which was essentially a canvas awning covered area. Then a small 1-room meditation cabin, and that is still standing. In the end of 1900, 3 other cabins were built. And by the spring, a cellar was dug under the kitchen for storage. This was really primitive living. What was the routine? In the evening, a campfire was inaugurated as soon as the Swami got to the ashrama and was held regularly each evening. From 6 to 7 a.m. was meditation, 7 a.m. breakfast, 10 a.m. a scripture lesson by Swami from Raja Yoga or the Mandukya Upanishad, 1 p.m. a light lunch, 6 p.m. dinner, and 7 to 9 p.m. meditation and general conversation around the campfire. Daily, Swami awakened everyone by continuously chanting as he walked among the tents and the cabins. In their spare time, ashramites explored the country. They enjoyed quiet walks and talks. They performed personal chores. They engaged in reading and writing letters. So what was the Shanti Ashrama experience? It was an experiment. For some, it was a new beginning. For others, intense, sometimes painful awakening. To some, the ashrama was a sanctuary from the world, a complete disassociation from old attachments, binding relationships, aggravating habits, false perceptions. To others, a challenge. Swami Turiyananda would say, the mind is always curious, always reach out for news. I see whenever it is mail day, you run for your letters, and for the following 24 hours, though your body is here, Your mind is in San Francisco. Give up being curious about nonsensical things. Be curious about Mother and how to know and love her. Everything was about the Divine Mother. Swami Turiyananda would remind the students, if you think of worldly affairs all the time, why did you come here? We have come here to think of Mother. For some, the ashrama was like a white background where one was literally thrown back on oneself, forced to imbibe the true nature of silence. Guru Das, later Swami Atulananda, the first Western saint in the Ramakrishna order, explained, in the Shanti Ashrama, the Swami repeatedly warned us against idle talk. He said, you always like to gossip. Useless talk brings much trouble. You begin to discuss others. Look at your own faults and be silent. Silence is called mauna in Sanskrit. It means not only abstaining from speech, but indrawing of all the senses, looking inward, centering the mind on the Atman. What were the spiritual practices? Well, the spiritual practice of solitude. For ashramites, 3 days was the maximum allowed. Swami often went for 1 week or 10 days. Mrs. Peterson, later Dira, said she could feel the Swami's presence so much when he was in retirement. Such a strong presence he had. Miss Beckham Chintasani wrote, yesterday Swami came out of retirement after 10 days. We all got such a blessing from his communion with Mother. She was writing to the San Francisco devotees. Yesterday morning, he came out while we were in meditation, just about time for us to close, and chanting in a way that stirred you to the very center. He walked 3 times around the meditation cabin and then came in. Never in my life have I felt anything so beautiful and impressive. I shall never forget it. Holy company. Many progressed rapidly, being in the close proximity of such a qualified teacher. Swami Turiyananda would say, forget the world, think of Mother. It became like a mantra. One student said the very sight of him made us remember it. A lesson could come at any moment, often during a twilight walk down to the gate. Many were given during early morning rounds, when he would sit on a platform of the various tents. He was very informal. One student, Thomas Allen, remembered, he gave individual lessons as the opportunity presented itself. He bestowed Sanskrit names on the different students when the names came to him. He would sometimes ask someone to go with him, say to get the water. And on the way, he would feed the soul just the food that could be given at that time. Again, he would come into the kitchen while a meal was being prepared, and any small incident would call forth a lesson or story to make clear some question which was in the mind of someone there. This was what it was like to live in holy, close association with a direct disciple of Ramakrishna. Once Swami Turiyananda met Ujjala. He said, Ujjala, are you deep or shallow? Do you live and die in words, or do you live and die in principles? Before she could answer, he said, in matters of opinion, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand firm like a rock. That was all. but for her, it was the guidance of a lifetime. One day, Ujjwala encountered a deeper dimension of Swami Turiyananda in an unexpected way. She found him sitting all alone and laughing heartily. Ujjwala said to him, "What is so funny?" He only shook his head and continued to laugh. Ujjwala then said, "I would give anything in the world if I could see what is in your mind." Swami became sober in a moment, and he said, "You would see on the surface this and that, Turiyananda, but underneath you would see all Ramakrishna." Swami Turiyananda's unusual inwardness of character was especially marked in answering students' questions. Usually, he didn't give an immediate answer to serious questions. He took the question inwardly, and the reply came from a deeper consciousness. People sometimes repeated their questions. They thought Swami hadn't understood. Sometimes they would be disconcerted. But then Swami Turiyananda would begin to softly chant Om, his eyes looking beyond the questioner in a vacant way. But gradually, students became accustomed to his ways. When he finally answered, it was to the point and fulfilling. Years later, Swami Turiyananda divulged his method. While I was in the West, the Lord made me do his work. I felt that I was but an instrument in his hands. Whenever an inquirer came and asked a question, I used to see the face of the Lord, and the answer seemed to come directly from him through my lips. And the seeker would leave satisfied. The Ashramites experienced the 4 yogas at Shanti Ashrama. It was a retreat atmosphere. It was like Kurukshetra, a field for practicing all the 4 yogas, bhakti yoga. One student complained that there were not enough rules at the ashrama. Swami Turiyananda replied, "Organization kills the spirit. But if Mother organizes, then it is nice. Don't you see how she has organized us already? Everything goes on smoothly and regularly. What more organization do you need? There is only one power that organizes without doing harm. That is the power of love. Let us learn to love, and organization will take care of itself." He then said, "Why do you look so far ahead? Let Mother plan. Her plans come true. Human planning is all in vain if she does not consent. The future is an open book to her. Live in the present. Make the best of your time and opportunities. Don't think of the future. Know it for certain that Mother's will shall come to pass." Karma Yoga. Swami Turiyananda admired 2 innate spiritual qualities in his American students: their dauntless pioneer spirit to endure hardships and overcome obstacles without a murmur, and their intense activity. He would say, "Oh, I like your American energy. Everyone is busy knowing just what to do and doing it. No confusion, just efficiency and speed. It is excellent." The Ashramites planned their own work. Swami infused it with the highest ideal. He said, trusting in Mother doesn't mean idleness. Try to know her will and then be up and doing like a man. Everyone worked, including the Swami. He said, unless I give the example, why should you all work so hard? Let me share in the work. The children of Sri Ramakrishna must be able to do everything. Swami Turiyananda assisted in cutting wood, carrying water, working on the new buildings, all the while keeping in touch with everything and helping everyone. He was very informal and gave individual lessons as the opportunity presented itself. He also bestowed Sanskrit names on the different students when the names came to him. He would ask someone to go with him, say, to get the water, and on the way, he would feed the soul just the food that could be given at that time. Again, he would come into the kitchen while a meal was being prepared, and any small incident would call forth a lesson or a story to make clear some question which was in the mind of someone there. Students realized Karma Yoga was not simply work, but character building. Ida Ansel Ujjala had her own experience. Swami asked her to take notes of his class talks, and those shorthand notes became a treasure in our Vedanta Society of Southern California archives. She sharpened her pencil with a dull knife, and it became a jagged, unsymmetrical point. Swami appeared at the tent door, picked up the pencil, and exclaimed, "That's a sample of your work?" And with the same knife, he carefully whittled the jagged wood into a smooth, symmetrical point. He handed it back to Ujjala and said, "Make every act an act of worship. Whatever you do, do as an offering to Mother, and do it as perfectly as you can." Jnana Yoga. No matter how raw, imperfect, or immature his students were, Swami Turiyananda imparted top Vedanta philosophy to his students. He said, be yourself and be strong. Realization is only for the strong, the pure, the upright. Remember that you are the Atman that gives the greatest strength and courage. Be brave. Break through the bondage of Maya. Be like the lion. Don't tremble at anything. Swami Turiyananda made Jnana Yoga intensely practical. He said the world is neither good nor bad. What I call good, you perhaps call bad, and the reverse. Where is the standard? The standard is in our own attitude toward life. Each one has his own standard, and with increased experience and insight, the standard changes. When we become perfectly good ourselves, he said, the whole world will appear good. We see only the reflection of our own minds. See the Lord always in everything, and you will see no evil. Swami Turiyananda was an example of how an Advaitin speaks, teaches, acts. His words carried power. He wrote to Shanti Hansbro, a longtime San Francisco student, on June 25th, 1901. I am sorry you had to leave the ashrama. We miss you so much, every one of us. May Mother bring you back soon. But real Shanti is still in the ashrama. The shadow has gone only. Swami Turiyananda stressed viveka, discrimination, and also vichara, self-analysis. Ujjvala wrote, in so many ways, Swami tried to make us understand that the faults we see in others are really in ourselves. We are like dogs in glass houses, barking at our own reflection. The Ashramites learned how to find greatness of character in seeming little things of day-to-day life. Raja Yoga. The Shanti Ashrama was a field for Raja Yoga. Vichara practiced along with meditation. In the afternoon, all students went for a walk with Swami Turiyananda. They ascended the hill, Duni Hill, and they sat on the ground under the pine trees. There, Swami said, Mother is very proud and very pure. She wears a heavy veil that none may lift except her children. When they look behind the veil, she is happy and smiles. A young student asked, what is Mother and where is she? Swami said, she is everything and everywhere. She permeates nature. She is nature, but talk won't do. You must lift the veil. The student asked, how, Swami? He replied, meditate, meditate, meditate. You are frittering away your life. Think deeply, pray to Mother, go beneath the semblance of things and see the one reality in all. The priority was the first building to be constructed, which was the meditation cabin. And as I said, that cabin still stands. The teacher and his students met there twice a day. In the beginning of the meditation period, Swami's eyes would travel around the circle. Ujjvala remembered, he seemed like a coachman gathering the reins of restive horses to bring them under control. Then he began to chant softly in a minor key and continued till all restlessness subsided. Someone asked once what the chanting meant, and Swami replied, it's the lashing of the waves of the mind into submission. As the chant continued, the mind became calm and quiet. Hours later, Swami's chant began again and seemed to come from a long distance. Swami Turiyananda's example was such that he was completely absorbed in morning and evening meditation sessions. Whereas the Ashramites had to combat flies, mosquitoes, ants, and other insects. He was a yogi of a very high order. Swami Turiyananda said to one student, I know you better than you know yourself because I can look deep into your mind. You know only the surface waves of the mind, but through yoga practice, we learn to go deeper. By watching and studying your own minds, we dive below the surface consciousness and observe what is going on there. Many samskaras, latent desires, and tendencies are stored up there, he said, waiting for an opportunity to express themselves. These we can discover before they rise to the surface. Once a thought has come to the surface, it is extremely difficult to control. But as an early stage, before it has fully developed and gathered its strength, it is easy to manipulate. This is called seeing our thoughts in seed form. There was an indescribable bond established at Shanti Ashrama. Guru Dasa wrote, it was one big family, with Swami Turiyananda at the head. He called us mother's children, and he treated us all alike, without distinction or favoritism. So in conclusion, during the first 6-month period of the Shanti Ashrama days, from August 3rd, 1900 to January 23rd, 1901, 16 students altogether journeyed over Mount Hamilton to the settlement, into the tents and cabins there in the San Antone Valley. Ida Ansel wrote, there seems to be something special about beginnings. Swami Turiyananda spoke of it several times. He said it will never be the same again, and it never was. Though Swami Turiyananda returned 2 more times to Shanti Ashrama before returning to India. So what did the Shanti Ashrama days accomplish? Swami Turiyananda said to Guru Dasa, if I can influence a few students to love the Divine Mother and to live a pure life, I shall consider my work a success. When Swami Turiyananda was asked what he had accomplished in the West, he said, if I have made one illumined soul, my work has been a success. When he was asked, have you? He said, yes, Guru Dasa. Guru Dasa said Swami Turiyananda had felt from moment to moment that the mind was behind him, leading him and guiding him. And he later became a channel of the inflow and outflow of a great spiritual power. Under such conditions, results were inevitable. The students had to respond. The Swami's ardor was infectious. At the Shanti Ashrama, characters were changed and lives were changed. The very atmosphere of the place began to breathe a different spirit. It was as if the minds of the students gradually came under the spell of a new charm. Natural tendencies and ambitions seemed to be transformed, to be replaced by one single ambition, to realize the truth, even in this life. But what did those days of austerity contribute to us? Are they just a reminder of the need for solitude in a restless, highly stressed society? Or are they part of Sri Ramakrishna's divine Leela that his disciples lived so that we may read about it, meditate upon it, and become self-inspired? Is Shanti Ashrama a symbol of our own ground of all being? Are the Shanti Ashrama days a replica of our spiritual struggle to go deep within and dwell in that plane of consciousness where there is that peace that passeth all understanding? Did the Shanti Ashrama days serve as a role model to some for a new way of life in the West, based on the ancient retreat, Eastern style retreat ideal? Was it in fact the beginning of communal Eastern monasticism in America? Can it be an example for us in Dallas to spend these few hours of a week that we can in the spirit of Shanti Ashrama, a spirit of inwardness, and develop an abiding spiritual friendships with our fellow pilgrims? Perhaps the real beauty of Shanti Ashrama's legacy is that it can't be assessed or limited in scope to only one historical event. This era of the Shanti Ashrama lasted altogether only 15.5 months and involved only a handful of rugged pioneers whose lives were unpublicized and hidden. But something happened at Shanti Ashrama. Something which is recognized in the Ramakrishna order as something vast, something elevating, something enduring. The Shanti Ashrama days have been told and retold, lived and relived, till they have become part of our spiritual heritage. A living study of the early Vedanta movement in America. And when I think of Shanti Ashrama, I can't help but marvel how from 1900 to 1925, America was home to a great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. And as the Swami quietly tilled our Yankee soil and sowed seeds of God realization, he worked his miracle of transforming a piece of California land into a sacred place, pilgrimage, where one can truly feel the silent, though thunderous vibration that was left for us to imbibe for years to come.